All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something pretty huge: power and our mindset. We usually associate power with, I don't know, massive wealth, strict authority, or just unyielding physical force. But what if our entire framework for understanding strength is completely backwards? Let's dive right in and figure this out. So, be honest. Have you ever caught yourself scrolling through someone else's highlight reel and just thinking, wow, their life is absolutely so much better than mine? Look, it's a totally universal human experience. We all deal with that fear of missing out and that really sneaky, heavy feeling of envy. To understand why we do this, let's strip things right back to basics and look at the life of a humble, poor stonecutter. This guy's life is divided by grueling, literal, back-breaking labor. Every single day, he's out there braving the harsh elements, surviving purely by swinging a heavy hammer to break solid rock. His reality: dust, sweat, and just sheer, relentless effort. It's a seriously tough existence, but it actually sets the perfect stage for a psychological trap that, honestly, we all inevitably fall into at some point. Then, one pivotal day, everything shifts. The stonecutter, totally covered in the dust of his labor, takes a breather and spots a wealthy merchant passing by. And we are talking about a stark, dramatic contrast here. He sees this massive, beautiful house, luxurious transport, and just vast, undeniable riches. In that exact split second, the stonecutter stops looking at his own hands, his own tools, and his own hard-earned life. Instead, he just fixates entirely on the external wealth of this other person. It's that precise moment, right there, where his perspective flips from valuing his own existence to feeling this massive sense of lack compared to someone else's abundance. And that brings us to this pivotal thought: I wish I were that rich. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this single thought of envy acts like a massive catalyst. In our story, it triggers a literal, magical transformation. Boom. He is instantly turned into that very merchant. He gets the good house, he gets the riches, the whole shebang. But let's pause for a second and look at the underlying psychology. How often do we think, man, if I just had that job, or if I just had that house, I'd finally be happy, I'd finally be powerful? The story gives him this ultimate wish instantly, just to show us exactly what happens next. Spoiler alert, he gets what he wants, but his internal compass? Yeah, that hasn't changed one bit. From here, the narrative shifts into high gear, mapping out this crazy sequence of transformations: merchant, king, sun, cloud, wind, mountain. This brilliantly illustrates the relentless treadmill of his desires. Because think about it. As soon as he becomes the merchant, he spots a king and realizes, wait, the king has more authority. So he wishes to be the king, and poof, he's the king. It's this endless hierarchy of perceived strength. He just continuously spots someone or something more powerful. It's honestly the perfect metaphor for human ambition when it's driven by insecurity. The goalpost literally keeps moving. You reach one peak, only to realize you're still at the bottom of another, constantly chasing this external ideal of absolute power that, well, it simply doesn't exist. And we see the extreme fragility of this external power play out immediately. He becomes the powerful king, ruling over everyone. But wait, suddenly the king is sweating, completely tortured by the harsh, beating rays of the sun. So he's like, okay, the king isn't the ultimate power, the sun is. He becomes the sun, blasting his intense heat across the earth, feeling totally unstoppable. But then, dark clouds roll in and just effortlessly block his radiant light. In a flash, his supreme power is completely overshadowed. Notice how incredibly fleeting external power truly is here? Every single time he assumes a new, magnificent form, whether it's celestial or elemental, it's almost immediately victimized by the very next force in the chain. Now, this escalating chase builds some serious tension. After those clouds get blown away by the wind, he actually becomes the wind, the unstoppable force. He's whipping up massive storms, feeling absolute, unchecked supremacy over the earth. But then, bam, he slams right into the unmovable mass, a giant mountain. No matter how hard he blows, no matter how much immense force he throws it at it, that mountain doesn't budge a single inch. The mighty wind is completely defeated by the sheer stubborn permanence of the stone. Convinced he has finally found the absolute zenith of invincibility, the ultimate power, he wishes to become the mountain. And yep, he does. He is now a colossal, unshakable force of nature. But then, a dramatic, terrifying realization hits. He is the mountain. He is massive, ancient, untouchable, until he suddenly feels a sharp, rhythmic, chipping pain right at his base. Tap, tap, tap.
I mean, imagine the sheer shock. The grand, unmovable mountain, the supposed pinnacle of strength in the entire world, is feeling physical pain. It is slowly but very surely being broken apart. That absolute illusion of invulnerability completely shattered in an instant. He is absolutely terrified. I mean, what in the world could possibly be more powerful than a giant mountain? Well, the ultimate climax reveals itself right here. He looks down from his towering height and sees the actual source of his destruction. It's not some mythical god, it's not a cosmic storm. It is a simple stonecutter. A regular guy with a hammer, diligently, sweatily, breaking the mountain's rocks piece by piece. The central irony of this whole story is incredibly profound. The very thing dismantling the magnificent, completely unmovable mountain is a simple, everyday laborer. Literally the exact same person he used to be before this crazy cycle of envy even began. It's this stunning full-circle moment where he finally realizes the ultimate power was wielded by the very life he had so desperately abandoned.
Which brings us to a really critical concept we need to unpack: the illusion of external power. This is basically the false belief that becoming someone else or acquiring someone else's stuff will somehow magically solve all our internal insecurities. And why does this matter for us today? Because when we constantly compare our lives to others, we are actively diminishing our own inherent value. You see, the stonecutter gave up his own agency because he was totally blinded by the illusion that strength looks a certain way, like a king's crown or a merchant's gold. But as the story so perfectly proves, external power is always, always vulnerable to something else. So the real takeaway here is that true power isn't found in a crown, a storm, or a massive bank account. The explainer explicitly distills true strength into 3 foundational traits. First up, hard work. That's the grit to just show up every single day and chip away at the rock. Second, patience. It's knowing that a mountain isn't moved in a single afternoon, but through consistent, steady effort. And third, self-confidence. That unwavering belief in your own tools and your own worth. The story is telling us that these 3 qualities working together in harmony are what make a person truly fundamentally powerful. The crazy part? The stonecutter always had this power. He just didn't recognize it. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly vital question. Are you searching outside for the power that already exists right within you? It's a trap so many of us fall into, right? We look for the next promotion, the next big purchase, the next piece of external validation to finally make us feel enough. But as we've seen today, that cycle of envy is endless and honestly totally unfulfilling. So I want to challenge you today to just step off that treadmill. Recognize the immense, unshakable internal strength you possess right now through your own resilience, your own patience, and your own hard work. The hammer is already in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to look inward and realize just how powerful you already are.